Hey everyone, I want to start a new series. The series is called Ask the Rabbi. And what I'm going to be doing is looking at comments that I've gotten under my videos, whether on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the different social media platforms, where everyone leaves their comments. And very often the comments are not questions, but sometimes they are. And I want to try to address some of them here because I think people are genuinely curious as to what I'm doing. Either they're angry, or they're upset, or they're just curious. What exactly do you believe? What is going on over here? So let me address some of these questions and see if we could make some progress. The first one goes like this. It's less of a question and more of an accusation, but I think that it serves as a question because to this person, they think that I'm doing something wrong. This is ridiculous. Trying to move Jews from following the Torah. Shame on you. So I don't know what you see in what I'm doing that makes you think that I'm trying to make Jews leave the Torah. I'm trying to bring Jews closer to the Torah. The reality is that the majority of Jews are not Torah observant at all. And the reason for that is because the Torah is inaccessible. It's entirely not understandable to the majority of people. And when people observe the traditional form of Judaism and the way that it's practiced by the rabbis, by the Orthodox, that's honestly not something that people want to have in their lives. People want to live good lives, free lives, with moral principles to guide them. And that's exactly what the Torah provides. Whereas everything that you see from the rabbis, that's not freedom, that's not guidance, it's actually closing people in and removing them from God and from the life that God created. So what I'm preaching is the Torah itself. I'm not telling you to look anywhere else. I'm telling you read the 5 books of Moses, that's the Torah. Do not add or subtract. Everything written in that book is what you have to follow. That is what it says about itself. So unless Rabbinic Judaism admits to what it really is, which is really just another religion, they are not the ones who are bringing people closer to Torah. They're bringing people closer to the rabbi. And yes, the Torah is somewhere in the mix there, but the Torah is not what it's about. It's about Rabbinic Judaism. So I'm here to bring people to the Torah and nothing else. Here's another one. I'm sorry, but you're not going to know how to fulfill any of the commandments without the oral Torah. How to do circumcision, how to keep Shabbat, the intricate laws of kashrut. We would be lost without the oral Torah, so I have to disagree with you there, bud. All right, bud. The Torah is extremely clear. And for any of these nonsense preachers who want to talk about the fact that the Torah is not understandable, what's not understandable? How to do circumcision? Circumcision has the oldest definition in the world. It's the removal of the male foreskin. When God told Abraham to circumcise his foreskin, Abraham knew exactly what to do. When the sons of Jacob, Simon and Levi, told the Shechemites to circumcise themselves, they all knew exactly what to do. Male circumcision is a well-defined thing. It's something that we've known for all of human history what it is. So unless you want to pretend like we don't know what circumcision is, we don't know what a table is, we don't know what a chair is, we know what these things are. Shabbat says don't work, don't leave your place, cook your food on the 6th day, don't burn a fire. Clear instructions, just don't work, stay at home, don't cook, just be. Oh my God, it's so hard. What should you do? Can you rip toilet paper? Can you separate almonds and pistachios? Yeah, if you think that that's the brilliance of the oral Torah, then you're a dumbass, all right? This is absolute jokes, okay? God tells us how to behave, and all the things that man introduces is just confusion, not clarification. And as far as the intricate laws of kashrut, when you say intricate, do you refer to all the added laws that the rabbis created? Making up a law of slaughtering, making up that you need a rabbinic certification on everything you eat, making up that for some reason you can't just go ahead and remove pork and shellfish from your diet and then be a completely kosher person? Well, you can. And all of the rest of the rabbinic laws about a spoon touching a fork and falling into a dairy sink and a meat kitchen. Sorry to tell you, a plate is not a dairy plate, it's just a plate. So all of the intricate laws of kashrut are not in the Torah because they don't exist and they're not from God. So stop asking endless questions and start to accept that the answers have already been given. Another one, do you put on tefillin? If you can, tell me about it. Sure, yes, I put on tefillin. And look, there is a debate whether it's even a literal commandment, and I can see it both ways. It is quite a metaphorical thing to have signs and ornaments, but it's also literal. So I have the literal tefillin. The modern day tefillin of the Orthodox work. They have the 4 chapters in the Torah that discuss tefillin, where they write it down on parchments, put it in a box, and wrap it. However, it doesn't need to be exactly a square black box with writings the way the rabbis say. It needs to be on special parchment with a special writing and all of these things. That's not true. It's just not true. So yeah, to the extent that the tradition is reliable and the fact that it takes the 4 paragraphs discussing the sign on the hand and the ornament between the eyes, and you go ahead and you put that on some scrolls and you wrap it upon yourself, sure, that doesn't hurt. It's a great practice. But for people to pretend that this would be completely impossible to observe without the rabbis telling you exactly how to do it, that's obviously nonsense, okay? So it's obviously not true. We can figure out how to take some verses from the Torah, write them on parchment, and wrap them on our hand and place them as an ornament between our eyes. That's quite a simple thing to do, and the idea that it needs to be done in this specific way is not true. Because, again, according to the rabbis, if you have a red tefillin box and you put it between your eyes, suddenly now you didn't fulfill tefillin. Why? The Torah doesn't say a word about a box, doesn't say a word about anything other than place it between your eyes. So if you put it between your eyes, it's actually pretty good, and the color of the box doesn't matter. And curiously, when it comes to the mezuzah box, they go quiet. What color mezuzah box should you use? What color mezuzah? Red, purple? It doesn't matter because it's a box. The tefillin are not about the box, it's about the writings and the parchments within them. You have the words of the Torah, write these words as a sign upon your hand and an ornament between your eyes. Those words point you to the rest of the Torah, to the unity of God, to remembering that you have to dedicate everything that you own to God and your life and your heart and your soul and your resources. It's effective. The modern day tefillin work. However, that's not the only model for tefillin possible, as they claim. Here's a good one. The crazy thing is, you think you're smarter or more intelligent than the Gemara, the Talmud. They are giving commentary and you give your own with billion times less Torah knowledge. What exactly does that mean, billion times less Torah knowledge? You understand the Torah is made up of 5 books of Moses. If you know the 5 books of Moses, you know the Torah. You don't have to know every crap thing that the rabbis have said for thousands of years to know Torah. That's not Torah. That's lunacy and people spouting nonsense and their own opinions for way too much time and space. No, I know the Torah because I've read the Torah. And guess what? You can know the Torah too because you can read the Torah too. Stop letting other people tell you that they have authority over you, that, oh, I'm a rabbi, I have the title of a rabbi, I lived 2,000 years ago, so now I'm holy and you have to listen to every word that I say because it's from God. No, it's not from God. And I don't have less Torah knowledge than the rabbis. I have the same Torah knowledge that they have had because the Torah has been the same for thousands upon thousands of years. So if you have Torah knowledge and I have Torah knowledge, we can all discuss that openly and honestly as the Torah tells us to do. Speak of these words when you sit in your house, when you walk upon the way, when you lay down, and when you arise. All the time you should be engaged with matters of Torah and speaking about it if you are part of the people of the book and the people of God who have to follow these laws and meditate on them all the time. You don't have to be some sort of holier than thou rabbi who has the billion times of Torah knowledge. No, the Torah is 5 books. We can all know them. We can all read them. And I encourage you to do so. This is regarding spilling seed. Brother, it was a sin in the Old Testament. Read the story about Onan in the Bible. The story of Onan in the Bible is not a story about spilling seed. It's about a man who rejected his responsibility to procreate with his brother's wife to have children for him. Forbidden to marry your brother's wife, by the way, only if he died without children and you have to have children for him. This man went ahead, married his brother's wife, and then decided to not have children for him. As it says in Genesis chapter 38, Onan spilled his seed, destroyed his seed onto the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. That was his sin. He refused to give offspring to his brother when that was his obligation. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be allowed to be with his brother's wife. So he took advantage of a woman. He didn't fulfill his obligations to God, and he was a complete dishonest piece of shit. That doesn't mean now that every time you spill your seed, suddenly now you're going to hell. Well, what does that mean? Because you didn't use your seed for procreation? Well, so what happens when your wife is pregnant? Oh no, now your seed's not going to procreation. What happens when she's postmenopause? The idea that every time you ejaculate, not for the purpose of procreation, you're now some sort of evil person is just not true. There's no sin of spilling seed. Obviously, we can argue that excessive masturbation is not healthy. Obviously, we should argue that having children and not being on birth control and actually fulfilling the act of procreation is a great thing, and God wants us to do that. However, the idea that spilling seed itself is some sort of terrible sin worthy of death, which is what they tell you, that's a complete lie. So don't let the shame and guilt hang over you like that. Simply false. Here's the one with the truth. If you don't believe in the oral Torah, you will end up in a group of people that will eventually have nothing to do with Judaism and don't even study the written Torah. Yeah, of course. Make your predictions, big man. That's not how this is going to work, okay? You don't know what the future holds. The reality is that God says to follow the written Torah. So you follow the written Torah, and if you follow it, then you'll follow it. So don't tell me that if I don't follow the oral Torah, now I'm not going to follow the written Torah. That's an asinine thing for you to say. You have no right to tell me what's going to happen to me or my children. If I follow the written Torah and my children follow the written Torah, then we'll all follow the written Torah. So you can go shove it when you tell me what's going to happen to me and my offspring, okay? Because God's laws are sufficient. Who are you to tell me that it's not going to be fulfilled because I don't follow the oral Torah? No, that's nonsense. The oral Torah is not from God. The oral Torah is a pile of books and rulings made up by rabbis and their cronies, and they have no bearing on the Torah itself. Do not add or subtract to God's commandments. Do not go to the right or the left from what God says. Speaking of the rabbi's unquestionable authority, the amount of ignorant people in the comments is amazing. Only someone who's never learned the Torah can be unaware that following the rabbis is a straightforward commandment in Deuteronomy. Y'all need to go back to school. Now, y'all need to leave school because there's no commandment in Deuteronomy that tells you that you need to follow the rabbis. That is a false fabrication. Go look at Deuteronomy chapter 17, which is what they quote to you out of context, where it says that if you have a doubt in the pre-existing law, you should go to the place that God tells you. And from that place that God tells you, you should listen to what the judges command you. Okay? So what? Where is the place that God tells you? The temple. The temple doesn't exist. Your local rabbi is not the high priest in the temple and the judges that God appoints. No, that's not who they are. They don't have that authority. Not to mention, they don't have the authority to make up their own laws. They have authority to settle disputes in the pre-existing law. So if you go against them, not with malice, because it says he who goes against them with malice to do the wrong thing. If you go against them with righteousness to do the right thing, to say, excuse me, this court is corrupted, this court is not from God, then you are actually righteous. So first and foremost, the rabbi's court is not from God. It is not the high court in the place that God chooses, that Deuteronomy 17 discusses. Also, if you go against the court with righteousness because they're clearly going against God, then you're not a bad person. So let's just stop telling people that there's a commandment in the Torah to listen to the rabbis. That's a complete fabrication. There's no such thing as a rabbi in the Torah. The Torah says to listen to God and to the appointed judges that are carrying out God's law, not to a bunch of frauds who are running around making up their own religion in the name of God. I am Jewish and married to a non-Jewish woman. My understanding is that the Judaism of the matrilineal line is purely from the Mishnah and the Talmud. In this case, can my children be considered Jewish? Absolutely. The idea that Judaism goes through the mother is completely made up by the rabbis. There is no source in the Torah whatsoever to say that Judaism goes through the mother. In fact, lineage is reliably traced through the father, as it says in Numbers chapter 1, verse 2, to their families by their fathers' houses. Fathers dictate family names. Everyone in the family is named after their father. So actually, lineage goes according to the father. So first of all, yes, the fact that you are a Jewish man married to a non-Jewish woman, if you and your family observe the Torah, they all go by your name. They follow your lineage. So yes, they are all Jewish, rather Israelites by name. That actually is the case. And look, regardless of your lineage, if you choose to follow the Torah, you are welcome into the congregation of Israel as God commands his people to accept all strangers and sojourners who follow the laws of God, to accept them and love them and support them in our communities. And I want to conclude here because this is really kind of a plea and a call for help by a fellow seeker of God. I've been Torah observant for many years now, but because my mother isn't Jewish, I've always felt like a second-class citizen, maybe even less than that. I'm not really accepted in any Jewish circles. I've made peace with that, but I can't ignore that the Torah does emphasize the communal side of life. Out here in the diaspora, it's just me, my wife, and our 2 children, no community, but we do our best. Well, God bless you. And look, we are all in diaspora. The reality is, even though Jews are in Israel, they're still in diaspora. We are all spread across the world. We're spread thin. All of the evil has penetrated every corner of this earth. There is no reliable community of people that are God-fearing and serving God correctly. So it is between you and God, and you're lucky enough to have your family. And by the way, read Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2. You and your family, you and your children are the key to redemption. That is the Torah's vision for the future. Individuals in the family unit. Each and every person has the key to unlock the door to the eternal salvation that we're looking for. So this is between you and your personal life and between you and God. So don't get too caught up in looking for a community. God will send you your community when it's time. But your individuality and your family come actually before your community. And only a community of strong individuals and families is a community worth being a part of. Because if it's a community of weak people with bad ideas, that community just falls apart. And it becomes a group of enabling people who are just doing bad things, and they all enable each other to do it. So be strong, be brave, and stick to God and stick to the Torah no matter where you are in the world, because no matter where you are in the world, you can fulfill it. You don't have to live next to a shul, next to a synagogue in order to be connected to Judaism. That's some lie that the rabbis tell people, oh, if you want to convert to Judaism, you got to live next to a shul, you got to live next to a synagogue. No, there's no synagogue in the Torah. God is everywhere. His presence fills the entire world, and we can connect to him at any point in any place, And the Torah laws are there and accessible to us. The Sabbath, the laws of kashrut and how to eat, the laws of purity and sexuality, and all of the goodness that God teaches us and how to behave. That's all accessible and clear for us to read and to implement in our lives at any point. So don't get caught up in the community. Don't compromise your integrity for a false sense of community. Stay strong with God. Don't let people confuse your mind. Stay clear and pure of heart and walk with God every day and every night.